chains. The opportunity for India at this point in time is something that everyone is talking about. The companies that will be here with me on the Rising India stage today have already placed their bets on India, are long-term investors, committed investors in India. But the question now is, how do we grow the share of manufacturing to GDP from the 15 to 16% where we have been sort of stuck at over the past decade or so to 25%, which was the aspiration and the hope that we get to that number by 2030. What has changed, but more importantly, what more needs to be done to ensure that we can truly capitalize on India's manufacturing moment? Joining me today to discuss what the road ahead looks like for the manufacturing opportunity in India, please welcome Salil Gupte, the president of Boeing India. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Also with us, Sanjeev Sharma, the CEO and managing director of ABB India. Joining us here on the Rising India platform, Sunil Vachani, chairman of Dixon Technologies, one of India's largest homegrown consumer durable companies, and Santosh Iyer, the managing director and CEO of Mercedes-Benz India. Salil right here, Sanjeev right there. Keep the applause going, ladies and gentlemen. We still have Santosh and Salil Vachani walking up on stage. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here. Please take a seat. Appreciate you being here today. I want to start by asking each one of you, as we frame the debate this morning, India's manufacturing moment now or never. And Salil, I'll start by asking you about it. We've all been talking about the fact that over the last 2 years, specifically in a post-pandemic world, in a world where we are seeing geopolitical risks and geopolitical tensions, there is a need for supply chain resilience, there is a need for diversification, that this could be the opportunity for India, that this is the window for India to be able to capitalize on. Are all our ducks lined up?
So, I'll start. Thank you so much for having us, Shireen. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. This is a unique moment. Look, I've been in the aerospace business for my entire career, finance and then with Boeing, the OEM, for the last 14 years. And what I can tell you is for my entire career, people have been telling me that someday, India will be one of the top markets for aviation. Someday, India will have the capability for top quality manufacturing and be part of the global supply chain. And it is crystal clear that in this moment, as we emerge from the global pandemic, someday has arrived. Right?
Someday has arrived.
Someday has arrived. This is India's moment. Because as companies around the world seek supply chain resilience, this means diversification of the supply chain, dual sourcing, and India has an opportunity to perform at a world-class level, which they are doing in our experience with our billion-dollar-plus supply chain here in India. And as a result of that, they can earn more work in manufacturing here. That performance drives additional work placement, and that's what we're seeing.
So someday has arrived. That's the word in from Salil at Boeing India. I'll come to that historic deal that Boeing has just inked with Air India in just a second. But let me get Sanjeev to comment. Sanjeev, as I pointed out, ABB has been a long-term committed investor. You've been in India for over 70 years now. I don't know how many people in this room know, but you've got almost 20 factories up and running across India. How important is India today from a global manufacturing point of view?
Thank you, Shireen. We have been very long on India for, as you mentioned, for the last 70, 75 years. We are manufacturing in this country. And we have developed deep supply chains within the country, which not only serve us to serve customers here in India, but also they are globally connected. I must say that over a period of time, we have seen different market cycles, different policy cycles, and it serves well for a business to take a long point of view on India, because this is growing year after year. And last few years, I must say there is a dramatic shift wherein we have increased the portfolio depth that we have of our global technologies in the country. And we have about 18 product lines, and each of the product lines is doing extremely well, both on the quantitative as well as qualitative basis. So I believe that more you localize in this country, better effect you get more competitive, and at the same time, you create operations which can not only serve the domestic market, but also the global operations. That has been our experience so far.
You know, I'll talk about the export opportunity with each one of you, but I want to pick on this with you, Sanjeev. You had a record 2022 order book of over 10,000 crores. Is India today your fastest growing market?
We grew 31% last year. And as I said, we are exposed to about 22 market segments, very dark, segments in the power industry, and also new market segments like data centers. I find that all the market segments are growing at a very healthy rate. And yes, it is India's moment. And among all the markets globally, there are other markets which are quite strong for ABB Group, but India definitely stands out.
India definitely stands out. Well, that is good to hear. And ladies and gentlemen, that does deserve a round of applause as well. Sunil, you know, to have built a homegrown consumer durable company over the past 2 decades. You started this off in the early 90s. And I remember you saying that the biggest difference between when you started to what you are seeing today is that there is a mindset shift. That earlier people believed that software India could do it. Nobody believed that in manufacturing India could do it. That's the biggest change you see today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest change is the change in the mindset. And in most of the cases, I think that is the most important thing. So I remember maybe about 20 years back, I used to go and meet various bureaucrats and discuss with them that, we want to make India the next hub for manufacturing of the world. And the answer that I used to get was, don't waste your time. Our strength lies in software. And electronic hardware might not happen. And I think now mostly everybody is convinced that this is our time. And this is the time to make India the next hub for manufacturing, not only for the domestic market, but for the global markets. And I think if you look at the numbers, Shireen, they're very, very encouraging. The global market for our industry, which is the ICT, information, communication, technology, and electronics, it's almost $900 billion. And India has just about 2% market share. So our exports are roughly about $18 billion. So there's a huge opportunity that awaits us. And even in the domestic market, right, there is, I think, a big opportunity because the penetration levels, you'd be surprised to know hardly 15% of the people own an LED television. Maybe about just 10 to 12% people own a washing machine. Yeah. So there's a large potential for import substitution and making in India for India. And if I were to say, PLI and Make in India, in fact, 1.0 is already doing very well. I'm sure you already know the numbers, but for some of you who don't know, I think it's very encouraging. There is for the first time that out of the total demand of about $120 billion in our industry, almost 90 billion was manufactured in India.
Wow.
Right? And if you look at even exports, 10 years back, we were hardly exporting any mobile phones. Maybe 20 years back, in fact, we were importing all our mobile phones for the domestic market. And last year, our exports of mobile phones is about $10 billion, which is a growth of 100%. And next 5 years, we're looking at exports of $100 billion just from mobile phones alone. So I think now there is no doubt that this is our time, and this is the time to make in India.
Well, this is our time, and this is the time to capitalize on many of those segments that you spoke of, as you pointed out, that given the under-penetration, the headroom for growth in the domestic market, but more importantly also in the export market, is immense. Santosh Iyer, like everybody else on this panel, it was a record-breaking year for Mercedes as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to take a guess on how many Mercedes cars were sold in 2022? And these are all priced at 1 crore plus. Anyone here who wants to take a guess on how many were sold? 2 lakh. Santosh would be on a different planet if it were 2 lakh cars. Okay, Santosh Iyer, how many cars did you sell over 1 crore?
Well, last year we did more than 16,000 cars. It was the best ever year. And thank you. And 22% of these cars were more than 1 crore of rupees, which was never happened. And pre-COVID, this used to be around 10 to 12%. So almost 70% growth on cars more than 1 crore. So the structure of the market, we see a completely different market with this change.
But as we pointed out, there is severe underpenetration, and of course, taxation continues to be an issue that industry has been battling against. But that apart, when we are talking about the export opportunity as well as trying to cater to domestic demand, are you adding capacity at this point in time? What kind of incremental investments are we looking at? And how important is India from an export opportunity perspective?
Yeah, in Mercedes-Benz, we have something, India is always seen with a word called strategic patience. We have been in India
strategic patience.
Yeah, we have been in India for 28 years now. We were the first to set up manufacturing, and now we were the first to also start local EV production in India, in the luxury car space. So this strategic patience now, I think we all feel the time has come. The time has come for this patience to start now delivering. We have a capacity of 20,000 cars now going up to 40,000. We are investing. And apart from what we do on manufacturing, we also have a big R&D hub in Bangalore. We are employing more than 6,000 people there. And they work not only on engineering side, but they also work on software and also digitalization side. So there's a lot happening. And we are quite proud to say that any Mercedes in the world has an India in it. Because there is an Indian engineer which has worked on some development, some patent creation, and we are already contributing to the global ecosystem.
Well, it may not have an India-made component yet, but it certainly does have Indian design sensibilities, development capabilities as part of the product. Sanjeev, I want to roadmap the next 5 years, and I want to get the perspective for ABB. You're sitting on a fairly strong balance sheet at this point in time. You've set aside, what, about 1,800 crore rupees? That's the corpus that you have to play with for acquisitions, inorganic growth opportunities here in India. What would you consider? What would you look at? What looks exciting?
So in India, I think the way we run our business, we are a debt-free company. We don't bring money from outside. We are able to generate money here. We have a strong balance sheet. And we are looking at both organic as well as inorganic expansions. And if we are looking at targets in India, we are looking targets which complement as a bolt-on onto our existing businesses, both in the software as well as in the manufacturing area. So we have 18 business models. So each business model has been given the allocation, and they're looking out in the market, which are the partners they can acquire, so that we have a bolt-on business model expansion.
Anything on the anvil in terms of closure?
We do have a good list at the moment, but we'll definitely let you know. You'll be the first person to know the moment we have it.
I'm going to hold you to that promise. You made that in front of a large audience here. Salil, I want to talk about the big Air India deal. Congratulations. Boeing has inked that landmark deal along with Airbus. 220 planes is what Boeing will be supplying to Air India. But there's an additional top-up. So you are likely to supply 70 more aircraft. What's the deal with that?
Well, so when we have large airplane orders, we always give our customers flexibility to top that up as their needs evolve over time. Look, the Indian market for aviation is going to grow leaps and bounds. We forecast 2,200 airplanes to come into the Indian market over the next 20 years. And so with all of our customers, we want to give them a little bit additional flexibility to upsize their order when it's the right time for them to do so. And so that's what that's about.
Okay, so on the aviation side, Air India, 220 planes, that's a massive order that you've inked, and you said that 2,200 planes will be added on. That's the expectation and the estimate over the next 20 years. Any constraints that require redressal at this point in time to ensure that the opportunity in the commercial space continues to hold up?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we as an airplane OEM do is we're only successful when our customers are successful, right? So some of the things that we've announced over the past few weeks after the announcement of that deal is, of course, the logistics center to make sure we have parts here in India, the customer support center to make sure our customers can receive the technical support they need from the region, as opposed to having to call, Seattle or California all the time. Those are the kinds of things that we do to further buttress the world-class technical people that we've had on the ground here for years. But from a standpoint of the overall market growth, I think everyone will say it's maximizing the growth of infrastructure here. Because what's going to happen, we had 140 million air transport passengers per year before COVID, and now we're getting back to that figure and surpassing that figure. If you look at airport infrastructure, it's not too far above that number already in terms of what it can handle. And so that's why the government's initiative to double the number of airports and aerodromes is critical to enabling the delivery of those 2,200 airplanes over the next 20 years. And in addition to building the physical infrastructure, we have to optimize how we use the airspace, how we integrate it with defense, how we integrate it with drones and UAVs, the unmanned vehicles that are going to be coming up, and make the most of the infrastructure we have. It's only if we do that that we will be able to actually take those airplanes that we expect to come in.
Sunil, what's the aspiration now? It's from the last 20 years to where you are today, you've managed to build a 10,000 plus crore rupee company at this point in time. What's the target that you've set for yourself over the next few years?
Well, normally I do not set targets in terms of numbers because I think you're restricting yourself whenever you do that. But the vision is now that we want to be in the top 5 EMS companies globally, which would mean, setting up large capacities, world-class infrastructure, and focusing on efficiencies and Industry 4.0 processes and huge scale over a period of time. And I'm confident the way India is going, the kind of policies that we have in place, I think it's just a matter of time that India becomes the next hub for manufacturing, and Dixon is there in the top 5 companies globally.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck with that aspiration. But what about brands made in India for the world? How far are we from that?
Yeah, I think I remember reading an article recently, an editorial, that we do not still have brands which can be known as global brands, right?
Yeah.
Where are those brands and how are they going to come about? But I think if you look at the history of brands which came out of, let's say, countries like South Korea and Japan, these brands initially focused on being the brand behind the brand, which is being in electronic manufacturing as a service, right? And I talk about large brands, which you see now in India, the Korean brands and the Japanese brands. So what they did was, they focused on building a large scale. Then they focused on designing their own products, and then putting that money behind the brand. So I think we are at that stage now that we see a lot of companies now coming out in the EMS space. It's also encouraging that the financial sector has taken note of that. Last, I think 2 years, there have been 5 IPOs which have come in our sector. Yeah. So that scale is being created, that money is being spent on a component ecosystem, that money is being spent on design-led manufacturing. So I'm very confident that a few Indian brands are going to rise in our sector, which are going to be global in times to come. And I think we see some brands already have that aspirations. But I think some of the mistakes that were made, if we look at, let's say, 15 years back, we had great brands. Yeah. But probably they did not really invest too much into their own design in the ecosystem, which led to the downfall. But I'm sure now we've learned from our mistakes. Those mistakes are not going to be repeated. And very soon, we'll have Indian global brands.
Very soon, we'll have Indian global brands, and hopefully, course correction that has been made, and investment in R&D and IP will have to be part of that. Santosh, India today, one of the fastest growing markets, or is in fact the fastest growing market for Mercedes? Yeah,
it's the fastest growing market for Mercedes. Last year and this year, again, we expect double-digit growth.
And how many launches do you have lined up for 2023?
10 launches this year.
And on the electric mobility side, how big of that is going to be a play here in India?
Well, we were the first to launch a luxury EV in India, locally produce it. So we are fully committed on the localization of EVs for this market. We feel the consumers are ready for electric vehicles. It's about what kind of suitable products we can give to the market. We are committed to launch another 4 EVs in the next 12 to 18 months in India.
Okay, so 10 launches expected. Salil, I'm going to wrap up comments from each one of you. And let me start by asking you, in terms of sourcing from India for Boeing globally, that has been on an upward trajectory. Where do you see that over the next 5 years?
So I think, we're over 8,000 crores today. We don't have a number in target. What we have is a capability target, right? And that capability is both what we're doing and how we're doing it. I've already talked about what we're doing in terms of taking it up the value curve, but equally important is how we're doing it. And for example, that means continuing to skill the folks that are doing our work here, and that includes focusing on diversity. We have a factory in Pune with one of our partners where we have an assembly line for electrical components, which is 100% women. And it's just done to prove the point that that is possible. And it's things like that that we'll continue to do here.
Well, a factory with 100% women on board, that does deserve a round of applause, and I hope that we do see much more of that. And I think that is also going to be one of the things that we need to focus on as we build out the manufacturing story. Sanjeev, where do you believe we will find the sweet spot at this point in time? You've got your fingers across 20 different sectors, 20 different verticals. Where do you believe that the one thing where we really do have the strongest advantage today?
Well, in country, as I said, all the market segments are expanding. And since the sophistication of demand in the market is high and the consumers are asking for a high quality products, so that is deepening the supply chains. And with that, our operations are also getting more sophisticated, more automated. So that becomes kind of a world-class operation by standards. So what happens is that automatically becomes very attractive from the cost point as well as the operational delivery point for the export market. So we see that by participating in a good way in the domestic market, it also opens up a gateway for the export. So I think that's a sweet spot as we see going forward.
Sunil, you talked about mega factories, but are these going to be smart mega factories? Is that going to be the aspiration?
No, absolutely. And I think this journey has just started. There's a long, long way to go. And we're looking forward to the time that we can do at least about $300 billion of manufacturing in India. And I'm reminded of that Shah Rukh Khan movie, which said that, picture abhi bahut baki hai mere dost. So this has just started. And I remember that saying, this famous poet has said that, no power on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. And this is definitely our time, and this is the time to make in India.
Well, apna time aa gaya as per the panel here. Santosh Iyer, I'll give you the final say on this panel.
No, so I just continue the Bollywood twist because it's, we have been growing up to this entire thing that hum honge kamyab ek din, and it used to be dots. I think now we can do the full stop, and now we are there, and we will go to the next level.
Hum ho gaye kamyab. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. It is India's manufacturing moment and manufacturing opportunity, and we've heard from some of the best that India has today on what it will take for us to be able to capitalize on that opportunity. Thank you very much, and we wish you the very best of luck.